This is Harvey Lee Urey, known to the world as the actor Lee Majors, one of the better-known TV stars in Hollywood during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, with such shows as The Big Valley, Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law, $6 Million Man, and The Fall Guy. Lee Majors was born Harvey Lee Urey on the 23rd of April, 1935 in Wyandotte, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. His parents were Carl and Alice Urey. Carl Urey passed away on 14 November 1938 at the age of 34 from a steel mill accident only 5 months before his son Lee was born. Unfortunately, 18 months after Lee was born, his mother Alice was struck and killed by a vehicle while she was standing on a street corner on her way to work in 1940. Alice is buried in the Femdale Cemetery in Riverview, Michigan, next to her husband. She was 33 years old. Lee had an older sister named Betty, born in 1925. After her parents' death, Betty will be adopted by a family member and moved to Cleveland. In later life, she will marry and have 5 children of her own. Lee also had an older brother named Carl. Carl was born the 26th of July, 1929. After the death of their parents, Carl was adopted by his dad's younger brother, Ira William Urey, and wife Farrah. He was raised in Somerset, Kentucky. Lee was adopted by Harvey Urey and his wife Mildred, another brother of his dad's, when he was less than 2 years old. Lee will be raised in Middlesboro, Kentucky, with their son, Bill. Lee was raised as their own son. He didn't know that he was adopted until he reached his teens. It's been said that he found out by reading old newspaper clippings of his parents' death. While being left alone one afternoon, and he climbed the stairs into the attic and going through old papers. He didn't tell his adopted parents that he knew the truth for 5 years. Like anyone would be, Lee was shocked and disappointed. Where many in his situation often become troubled and rebellious, Lee Majors showed at an early age what type of man he would become. He said, "I made up my mind right then that my parents would never regret adopting me. I set out to prove myself to them." Lee attended Middleborough High School and was considered a good student and an excellent athlete. Middleborough's High School Stadium is now named Lee Majors Stadium. After high school, he attended Indiana University for a short while and then transferred to Eastern Kentucky State College. His hope was to play pro football, but unfortunately he was seriously injured in a game and was paralyzed from the waist down for several weeks, forcing him to wear a back brace for a year. While attending college, Lee met 16-year-old Kathy Robinson. They were married on June the 17th, 1961. On April 8, 1962, Lee and Kathy will have a son, Harvey Lee Urey, Jr., later to be called Lee Majors II. Kathy will quit in her senior year of high school to take care of their son, and Lee will finish college with a teacher's degree for history and physical education. By this time, Lee had become involved in acting and was performing at the Pioneer Playhouse in Danville, Kentucky. By the latter part of 1962, Lee won a part in a play entitled 7 Husbands. Now this is Lee and Kathy both performing at the Playhouse. After graduation and birth of their son, Majors took a bold step and moved his family to Los Angeles, where he had landed a job with the Park and Recreations Department as the Recreations Director for North Hollywood Park. His goal was still to become an actor, so he reached out to other would-be actors, including Dick Clayton, who had been James Dean's agent. He was told that he needed to attend acting classes, so for a year he attended classes and changed his name to Lee Majors after his childhood hero, Johnny Majors, who had played and coached for the University of Tennessee. In 1964, at the age of 25, Lee Majors will get his first unaccredited role as the cheating husband of Joan Crawford in a horror film entitled Strait Jacket. As his career was beginning, his family life was falling apart. Both Lee and Kathy stated their youthful marriage was a mistake. However, I suspect that Hollywood's influence had something to do with it, even though Lee was not yet well known by the public. Kathy and Lee will be divorced on the 20th of July, 1965. Although she and Lee Jr. had moved out in 1964, Kathy and son will later move back to Kentucky, closer to her parents. She had had enough of Hollywood. Even though Lee had a minor, unaccredited role in Strait Jacket, it helped him to get a part on the popular TV show Gunsmoke. In 1965, Majors tried out for the part of Heath Barkley on the newly formed TV show Big Valley. Heath played the illegitimate son of the husband of Victoria Barkley, played by Barbara Stanwyck. Majors won the part of Heath over 400 other actors, including Burt Reynolds. Majors immediately went out and bought a horse so he could learn to rope and ride. He said, being one of the most inexperienced actors on the show, Barbara Stanwyck helped him with advice and encouragement. Others on the show was Peter Breck, Richard Long, and Linda Evans. While still appearing on Big Valley, Lee will become one of a trio of cowpunchers that included Charlton Heston and Anthony Zerbe in the Western movie Will Penny. Although Majors had one of the lead roles, Charlton Heston and Joan Hackett was the stars. Will Penny was released in the U.S. on April 10th, 1968. From his role as Blue in Will Penny, Majors will get a starring role as a Vietnam soldier returning home in The Ballad of Andy Corker, showing the problems faced by returning veterans. In 1969, Big Valley will be canceled. Within 2 years of the cancellation, Majors in 1971 played Jess Brandon on TV series Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law. Lee played as law partner and friend of Owen Marshall, played by Arthur Hill. Lee said that Hill was the star of the show, and he just stood around a lot, with much time off. The series, he said, made him a great golfer. While still working on Owen Marshall, Lee will also appear in 24 episodes of the last season of The Virginian as the mysterious ranch hand Roy Tate. The Virginian was retitled The Men from Shiloh. In 1973, while still appearing on Owen Marshall, Lee will marry actress Farrah Fawcett on July the 28th, 1973, at the Bel Air Hotel in Los Angeles. They will move in Lee's Bel Air home. Farrah was asked by reporters why she had not moved in with Lee before, but maintained her own place. She said, "My parents, what would they think?" 5 years before Lee's marriage to Farrah, in 1968, when Lee was on The Big Valley, he was scheduled to attend an industry movie. His agent gave him several photos of girls that he represented. Now, this way, the girl that Lee picked would also get exposure. Lee chose Farrah. Farrah had only been in Los Angeles 2 weeks when she was invited by Majors to accompany him to the event. She had been driven to L.A. by her parents from their home in Texas. Now, this is the house on Rosedale Drive in Corpus Christi that Farrah Fawcett was born in. She had won several beauty contests in high school and college and sent publicity pictures to agents in Hollywood. One agent invited her to L.A. He was also Lee Majors' agent. Their initial meeting was over coffee with the agent. The movie industry event did not go so well. She did not drink, so her first alcoholic drink kept her in the bathroom sick most of the time. Lee didn't know if it was for real or if she just didn't like him. The next day, he sent her a dozen yellow roses, asking for a second try. A romance soon developed, and Lee started helping Farrah get parts in his show, such as Owen Marshall, that closed in 1974. But Lee had already signed to play Colonel Steve Austin in The $6 Million Man on ABC. The first episode aired 7 March 1973, and it ran for 5 years until 1978. Majors made sure that his wife appeared in several episodes. Up until 1976, Farrah had only appeared in Lee's show and a few TV parts and commercials. But that year changed everything. She won the part of Jill Monroe, a private investigator in the weekly TV series Charlie's Angels, along with Jacqueline Smith and Kate Jackson. The series was a hit and made stars out of all 3 actresses. The show's producer, Aaron Spelling, stated that it was Farrah's flowing blonde hair that made the show a success. Farrah quit Charlie's Angels after the first season. She had published pictures that sold by the millions. Lee said that he was the one that picked the photo of Farrah in the famous red swimsuit. The famous poster was taken at Farrah and Lee's home. This raised Fawcett's star power above Jacqueline Smith, who was being paid more than both Fawcett and Jackson because she was better known. Although Farrah was offered more money, she wanted to make movies and not be tied down to a weekly series. Fawcett did return to Charlie's Angels several times as a guest star. Songwriter Jim Weatherly, who wrote the hit song On a Midnight Train to Georgia, sung by Gladys Knight and the Pips, stated that he got the idea from Farrah. When he called the Majors' residence and Farrah told him that she was leaving on a midnight flight to Houston to visit her mother, he changed Houston to Georgia and plane to train. In 1978, production on The $6 Million Man shut down. Lee said that with me working so much and Farrah off making movies, there was a period of time he bet that they only seen one another 2 weeks out of a year. This would be a severe strain on any marriage. And in 1979, Lee and Farrah separated. 2 years after the separation, Major will produce, star, and even sing the theme song to The Fall Guy. Lee said there was a lot of interest in stuntmen at that time, and when he pitched his idea for The Fall Guy, everybody realized its potential. Lee starred as Colt Seaver's Hollywood stuntman. Majors was perfect for the part, as he had always done most of his own stunts. He said he should have used more stuntmen, and he would be in better physical shape today. 1 year after The Fall Guy began, Farrah and Lee will divorce in 1982. The divorce settlement will allow Farrah to keep their Bel Air home. On September the 8th, 1984, Lee will be awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's located at 6933 Hollywood Boulevard. The Fall Guy will run for 5 years until 1986. And in 1987, Lee will begin making frequent appearances on the TV series Tour of Duty about the Vietnam War. Also in 1987, Lee will work with Lindsay Wagner in The Return of the $6 Million Man and The Bionic Woman. The Bionic Woman had been a spin-off TV show back in 1976. The next year in 1988, after being single for 6 years, Lee will marry for the 3rd time. He had met Karen Velez in 1986, and they were together 2 years before marrying in 1988. Karen had been Playmate of the Month in December 1984 and Playmate of the Year in 1985. He was 48 and Karen was 27. That same year, Karen and Lee will have a daughter, Nikki Lauren Majors. Nikki will become involved in the movie industry later on in life. In 1990, Lee will star along with Abe Vigoda in Keaton's Cops. In 1991, Lee sold his oceanfront Malibu home. He and Karen moved to 615 San Marcos Drive in Fort Lauderdale in order to get away from Hollywood. The next year, in October of 1992, Lee and Karen welcomed twin boys, Dane and Trey. 2 years after the boys was born, in October 1994, Lee and Karen will divorce after 6 years of marriage. Karen will become a practicing master hypnotist and life coach. She will later marry again. In December 1994, Lee was attending a dinner party hosted by a friend when he spotted model Faith Cross. The famous movie star, $6 Million Man, the Fall Guy, and who was known worldwide, suddenly became the timid Heath Barkley. He asked his friend to find out how she felt about him and could he call her. The answer was yes. Their first date was at the Super Bowl in Miami in 1995. Lee will later propose to Faith at another Super Bowl party with a diamond ring shaped like a football. It'll be the 9th of November 2002 when Lee Majors and Faith Cross will marry. He was 63 and she was 28. To stay away from news media, the couple escaped to the San Pero Hotel overlooking the Mediterranean, Postano, Italy, to exchange vows with only 2 guests. They will honeymoon for 10 days in Italy. Although movie magazines gave little chance of the marriage surviving, they didn't take into account the woman Lee was marrying. Although she was a beautiful model, her heart appeared to be with her husband and seeing that he was happy and taken care of, instead of looking in the mirror all the time at herself. 1 year after their marriage, in 2003, Lee had knee replacement surgery. And during a routine angioplasty to replace a blocked artery, the operation turned into a nightmare when the artery started bleeding, and they were forced to perform a heart bypass. Lee spent several weeks in recovery. In 2006, Lee learned that his ex-wife, Farrah Fawcett, had been diagnosed with cancer. He followed her struggle against the disease for 3 years. Till June the 25th, 2009, she lost her battle at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica. Farrah was 62 years old. 2012, Lee and Faith left California and moved to a new home in Houston. He has appeared in several movies and been involved in different projects throughout recent years. His love for the movie industry keeps him looking for new projects all the time. The small boy Harvey Lee Urey, that lost his parents at such an early age, wanted so bad to prove himself to his aunt and uncle, has achieved his goal. Lee Majors is Hollywood royalty.